Hey, he likes art. So anyways, I'll stop.
Good luck.
Good luck. Thank you.
And good morning, everyone. I'd like to welcome you to another live Art Business Academy Q&A. Today is Friday, June 23rd, 2023. It is great to be back here with you. We were back last week, but you could probably tell I was still flying at about, half capacity last week. This week, I'm doing much better, feeling much better, a lot more energy, getting back into the swing of things. So it is great to be here with you. Just quickly, I know it's been a little bit crazy with our Friday and Wednesday sessions the last month. This next week is going to continue that way. Next Friday, we are going to be up in Pine Top, getting set up and ready to launch our 4th of July weekend festival show. So we will not be having a Friday session this coming week. It would also naturally be our 4th of July break from the Friday session anyway. But when we come back, the following week, my hope is that I'll have a lot to report about the Weekend Art Festival, what the results were that we saw. We're always trying something new. We've got some new things we're going to be trying for this show. So we'll have a lot to talk about in that session 2 weeks from now. Also, it is summer in Scottsdale. It's been very warm, getting warmer. I say that it's actually relative for June. It's been pretty nice. Our highs have been in the high 90s, 100, 101. This weekend, it gets to be 110, heats up a little bit more. But of course, with that, we start to see things slowing down. Traffic decreases significantly. But I'd just like to give a shout out to the importance of persistence and consistency in our efforts as we are, continuing to engage with clientele. And even at times when you think that, what's the point? No one's going to be seeing my art. No one's going to be doing anything, to keep doing that. So yesterday is a great example of that. It's a Thursday. Even during the summer, we continue to do art walks on Thursday evening. And so that was going to be the case. And this week, I happened to be on art walk duty, and Carrie was joining me, my wife, Carrie. And so we came in yesterday afternoon to the gallery. I worked from home in the morning. They came in the afternoon, and pulling onto Main Street in Scottsdale on a June afternoon can be a pretty disheartening affair. You pull onto the street, there are no cars on the road. You might see one or two hardy souls out walking around, but it just really looks like a ghost town. And even as we're walking in, we said, do you think we're going to have anyone in for Art Walk? What's even the point? Maybe we should just be closed. But of course, we're not going to do that. We're going to, do what we do. And got into the gallery, did some work. You're kind of catching up on things. And at about 4:30, a $2,500 internet order comes in. That's always nice. That kind of perks you up a little bit. It wasn't someone coming into the gallery, but you have that order come in. You say, okay, well, there's a start. And then at about 6 o'clock, a couple, shorts, t-shirts, sunglasses, pretty casual, walked in. I introduced myself, talked to them a little bit. This is a couple from South Dakota, but they have business dealings down here and a home down here. And so they're back and forth all the time. And just got to having a visit with them and learning a little bit about them, telling them about the gallery, introducing them to our artists. And, they were interested in some work. And so we had some conversations. And then I stepped back and let them look around, and noted that as they came around one of the corners of the gallery, they had a particular conversation about a piece, moved on, looked at other pieces, came back to that piece again, and started asking some questions, and then asked one of my favorite questions, which is that your best price on this piece? And you all know, when I hear that question, my eyes light up, because I know now we've got a great opportunity to move from casual interest to a purchase. And so I said, that artist does give me some room to move on pricing. Would this be staying in Arizona, or would we be shipping it? They said that we'd be shipping it. So I went back to the front desk and did my negotiation tactic that I do and go to the lesson on negotiation to see how I write it up. I write the retail price. There was going to be no tax because we're shipping it, but I add in the amount for shipping. This piece is I believe it's a 40 by 50 is roughly the size. So a larger piece. I estimated the shipping at $325. So I added that in. The retail price was $6,500. So the total came out to with shipping $6,825. Then I did my little bit of math, deducting out some percentage, which the artist has given me to work with. Came back with that figure. And then I also gave them a bonus additional discount of $101 because that was the current temperature in Scottsdale. And they were delighted by that and instantly said, yes, we'll take it. Let's do it. And so here we are. Let me pull this up with the customer. And it turned out that this couple, though they're from South Dakota, he had been stationed in Tucson in the military just out of school. And so this painting of the Tucson Inn really resonated with them. They're redoing a kind of entertainment guest room. And they just couldn't stop talking about this piece and are so delighted to add it to their collection. And so, there you go. After the discount, it ended up being a little over a $6,000 sale that, would have been very easy to have just said, let's scrap it for tonight, not do the art walk. But boy, you can't make the sales if you're not making the efforts. And so, though a large percentage of the time, especially during the summer in Scottsdale, but we could apply this at any point in our careers, a large percentage of our efforts are not going to see results. We're going to be waiting and having to exhibit patience and we're going to be disappointed. But if we're not putting forth that 100% of the effort all the time, we miss those little slivers and windows of opportunity that come along, to make the magic happen. And so it's just encouragement. And I think we're going to see a few questions today that kind of relate to this, that even though it's frustrating and even though it's discouraging to put forth effort and sometimes not immediately or even in long-term see results from that, I hope that we can all be stepping back and looking at the big picture and seeing that it's the cumulative effect of all of those efforts that ultimately is what puts us in a position to see the success come our direction. It just takes those few opportunities coming in, that ship coming into port that can make all of the difference. And so our first question is going to be kind of related to this. And I don't mean to pick on Joyce at all. I'm just relating it to this first. But Joyce says, I haven't sent out any gallery rep emails for the last several months because of the economy, because I'm sure there are many artists doing so right now. Can anyone here today say that they've had success in the last several months with getting representation in a gallery for sending out emails? Thought I'd wait for better times, start sending out in just a few weeks, or just research and get a list that I can use when things get a little bit better. So it's fair. Joyce is asking us here in the group, anyone want to hop in with any experiences that you have had recently with your outreach to galleries, or in past times when things seem slow where you've seen some success with galleries? And if not, I'll jump in. Let me go to Michael.
Yes. Good morning, everybody. Marketing doesn't stop. Sending out information to try to connect with people doesn't stop. The fear of the economy or what others are doing really can't factor into your own efforts to put forth your work to the world. I'm speaking obviously from the commercial side. I'm just getting into the fine art side, but anytime you do anything to interrupt your momentum, you're just going backwards just because the world's going forward on a daily basis. I don't think you should stop and self-doubt your efforts. Got to keep pushing forward.
Yeah. Amen. I'll throw an amen into that. Anyone else? Throw a hand up or click on the hand icon. I can pull you in. Anna, let me get you in and then I'll go to Stephen.
So I'm still working on preparing to send the emails out. But one thing I found is from looking at that, the sites online like art-collecting.com it's only a small selection of the actual gallery. So what I've been doing, or what I found helpful, is to go in person to where maybe one of the galleries listed, and I'll find 2 or 3 others, and I'm sort of compiling a list. And by going in person, I get a better sense of what the galleries are really showing, and whether my work might go there or not. So that's just another suggestion, to look outside the internet and go in person if you can.
If you can have the opportunity to go visit in person, boy, it makes a huge difference. And it's a great idea that we can be putting forth more and more effort on all fronts: the research front, the visiting galleries front, the figuring out our pricing front, all those areas. As Michael mentioned, momentum is huge. And if we can keep pushing that ball forward and keep the momentum going, we want to go for it. Stephen, let me go to you.
Yeah, there we go. There's always a reason not to do something. And you already said what we have to do, which is consistency and persistence. It's very easy to say, oh, things are so rough, I think I'll take a break. And the point is that there's no time like now, and it's always the best time. And that was advice from a stockbroker, but it's true always.
Well, one of my favorite opening lines of a book is, it was the best of times and the worst of times. And it's just always the case that, we can find reasons to think either way. And I will say, I guess we don't have any of these members here, but over the last 3 or 4 weeks, as I've been taking a little bit of time off, I've still been having emails coming in, and I've had 3 different emails. I'll be posting another testimonial to the Art Business Academy testimonial page in the next couple of days. I've had 3 artists, 3 members of the Academy, who have gotten into the galleries over the course of the last 3 weeks. So, yes, certainly there can be headwinds, and I'm not going to pretend that, hey, life is rosy, and if you just keep at it, success is sure to come your way quickly. No, things can get more challenging and more difficult, but, certainly we're not going to see the results if we're not putting forth that continued effort. So whenever the temptation comes across to wait for better conditions, hope for things to change, my suggestion is that there's just no good reason to wait. Do it now. And if it doesn't work now, do it again and do it again. And, maybe things will pick up a little bit, and that'll help. But I also think, speaking to that point, while other artists are out approaching galleries and maybe it's more competitive right now, I would suggest that in all likelihood, that's not the case. That in fact, many artists, present company accepted, of course, but many artists are going to be feeling the same kinds of concerns and doubts that you might be feeling. And, if they're not getting the encouragement, don't have the motivation, they can fall prey and not be out as much. So let's not overthink it. Let's just continue to push forward. Carla, I see you've got a comment. Let me pull you in.
Yes. I have been sending out for, a couple of years, maybe 3-4 years. And the certain galleries that most of them don't ever respond. In fact, none of them in the last 2 years, but they tell me I have to wait. They have a special time that they look at new artists for their gallery. And one of them in particular says, we have a Christmas show where you can apply. And then if we do like your things for future, we will contact you. And then they say, please don't contact us until that time comes. And so they just kind of put it in the wastebasket until then. So yeah, I haven't had any response for like 2 or 3 years.
Let's keep going, Carla. I mean, you're doing awesome work, and I would just keep building that list and keep pushing it out. I totally understand how frustrating that can be when you're hearing the push-offs and the waitings, but boy, just keep on keeping on. The work is good, and we're going to find those right venues. Michelle.
Yeah, Carla, I was in Madrid, New Mexico last week, and I went into a gallery and I recognized an artist there who's a friend of mine. I started chatting with the gallery owner. He has some high priced assemblage work, and I'm an assemblage sculptor. And I started talking to him, and he was like, yeah, man, we lost our email. We had some domain problems, and I had like 33 artists on the wait list. And I was like, oh my gosh. So I will be tell you that I'm a web designer, and I've been working with small businesses for 25 years. So many of them, the small businesses, they are not organized and business minded like Jason. All right. Jason, I think you're at the top of the heap.
I hope
Most
so.
gallery owners, even in Santa Fe, I was in Santa Fe too last week. I walked into a couple of galleries, and after going through this training, I'm like, oh my gosh, one of them had only been open 3 months on the square. They're lousy business people so often. That's why so many of them don't stay in business. So even if someone blows you off, I wouldn't take that as a rejection. Every so often, I mean, don't drive them nuts, but every few months
Reach back
I'd
out,
go,
be
hey,
persistent.
yeah, I'd follow back up.
Thank you.
Anyway.
Yeah, it's really hard, but I keep sending them out, and it's kind of like, well, I'm just gonna kind of piss them off, by sending so much. So when Christmas
I don't
comes,
think so. I mean, if you do it right and you do it in a business manner, if they're not interested, they're going to ghost you. If they're good business people, they're going to say thanks, but we're not interested. The Christmas thing, there's a co-op here, a big co-op in Manitou Springs here, and they invited me to do their Christmas show. I don't mean to offend anybody, but I don't make Christmas crap. I'm an assembly sculptor. And they want you to make stuff that's like under $50, $75. And I'm like, yeah, I don't do that.
Yeah.
no,
Yeah, so there's definitely, this is a process for sure. And, it is in some ways, a bit of a two-way process, whereas we continue to submit to galleries and continue to put ourselves out there. We're going to be consistent and persistent. We're also going to be, getting some feedback. We're going to be learning from that process. And we're going to be getting better at it. And I guess what I would say is that, especially if you have been consistent and persistent and you're not getting results, let's reach out to me. In fact, Carla, it might be time for you and I to have a little bit of a back and forth, and let's check over the portfolio and just make sure we're feeling like the submissions are exactly what we want them to be, so that we can reinvigorate our efforts and go at it again and start working towards those results. And that's a standing offer to any of us. If we feel like we're not getting the results we want, let's see if we can tweak and update and upgrade and make those efforts more effective over time.
okay, thank you.
Okay, good. Yes, thanks everyone for the input on that. And Joyce, hopefully that's helpful. And I would encourage you to just keep pushing out there. And now let's go to a question from Mickey. And Mickey says, my subject matter is almost always the same. Oil's been my first medium for many years. However, due to circumstances, injuries, and medical issues, I've ventured out to different media and smaller sizes, which we've talked about here. It can be a good idea to have some variety. So that can definitely be a good thing. Also, my approach in different media are different, but always same subject matter. My style is symbolic and somewhat mystical, and is different from my older oil paintings applying to galleries. Should I include all of my paintings? So of course, this would be an easier conversation to have looking at your portfolio. And Mickey, if you want to send an updated version of the portfolio, I would go ahead and do it with all of the work, so we can be looking at that and kind of have a better sense of the scope and range that we're talking about. But as a general rule, I want to be sending out a portfolio and images of a body of work that is consistent enough that work could show well together if the gallery were to select from a variety of the different pieces there. And that being the case, we're just going to have to look and use our best judgment on the newer body of work to see how well it integrates and fits, and think about my tendency would be to look at the older work and say, if I'm making a shift in direction that seems to be a more permanent shift, then I want to start easing out any of the older kind of the most inconsistent of the older work to try and create this cohesive body of work. And sometimes artwork just does have to move to the sidelines, and we have to think about other ways potentially in the future to work with it. But what we don't want to do is have because of a significant difference in the body of work, have a portfolio that sends a message that we're struggling with consistency. I know that it can be very challenging for you because you are right in it and so personally involved in it to be objective about that. So again, this would be another time for us to have some emails back and forth with the pieces that you're most concerned about, or looking at the portfolio overall, to make sure that we've got that consistent body of work going. And it may be that we'll look at the work and say, yeah, no, because of the subject matter and the underlying style, maybe it is okay to go ahead and include all of the work and to have the variety and let the gallery select. And maybe the galleries will say, we want some of the older pieces, although they won't know that they're older. We're not going to tell them that, but they may select a variety of pieces and it may work just fine. Or we may decide that there are some pieces we need to pull out of the mix for now in an effort to create that more consistent body of work. So another example, and again, this applies to everyone, of a time when we might think about asking for some additional feedback on the work. Next question from Liesel. This one is on sales. After watching the videos on making sales, I'm wondering what tips you have for applying this to an outdoor show or open studio situation when it's busy and you don't have time to have an in-depth conversation with everyone, especially if you don't have an assistant. Do you try to have longer conversations with just a few people, or do you visit with as many people as you can? What things do you learn from your outdoor show last year when you have many people going by and are competing for attention with so many other booths? And then the PS question there, which I also get, is what be great to see an approach to promoting events on Facebook for a Wednesday topic. And yes, let me take that one first. That's coming. We are going to be talking about that in a Wednesday session. But let's go back to this question on selling at events and open studios. And I could add that, I could add into that mix Art Walk, busy, weekends in Scottsdale. There, you're right. You're exactly right that there are going to be times where it's going to feel more challenging to give customers the kind of attention that I was able to give those customers last night when they were the only human beings we had seen for several hours, right? I can give them 200% of my attention because there is just nothing else going on. And that is, in a perfect world, that would be the ideal circumstance with every customer, that we could build a relationship, create an educational experience for them, engage with them, and really start to work towards a long-term collectorship with them. But not every context is going to allow us to do that. And certainly the two you mentioned, a weekend art festival or an open studio tour, we're going to have to adapt a little bit. And I guess what I would say is that my approach to this is to try and do my best to create a balance of those efforts. If I have a customer that is in my booth at a weekend art festival and things get going with that customer, and I'm feeling a rapport and there's real interest, they're going to get more of my attention, and other visitors to the booth might just get a hello, welcome, and a smile. And in some ways I'll let them attend to themselves. They're going to overhear what I'm saying to the other customer, and almost by proxy, they're going to get engaged in that conversation a bit. But I'm not going to be able to put my full effort on introducing them and talking to them because I'm already engaged with someone else. And, I'm not afraid to sacrifice a second and third customer who are in the booth if I feel like I've got something going with a first customer. I would far prefer to give that first customer my full attention and full effort to work towards generating the sale and not get to give as much to the others than to try and spread myself too thin and not be able to give anyone engagement. And that can be a real temptation in that kind of setting, to where you get into a mindset that I just need to flit around a little bit and try and give everybody a little tiny piece of myself. And ultimately then what can happen is you end up not really engaging with anyone. And it is always going to be a balancing act. We're going to use our best judgment. We're going to make mistakes, and we're going to say to ourselves, I should have engaged more with that customer. And the next time someone comes in, I'm going to do better, and just kind of constantly try to refine and revise and give even better effort. And we're going to win some and we're going to lose some. Of course, the advantage of those kind of events where you get a high volume of people through is that even though I am not a believer that art sells itself all the time, there are times where just by having that volume of people through, people know what's going on. They're aware that there are a lot of people here, that they're not going to get the attention. And sometimes they'll come back around. And then I'll get a chance to engage with them. They'll wait and see, if they have questions, they'll come back and ask them. And so we do the very best we can, but we engage the principles of salesmanship throughout that process, giving people opportunities to close on a sale, asking engaging questions, and working towards building the relationship. And we do it to the best of our ability. Let me throw this out to the group as well. Many of you have participated in art festivals and open studio tours. What have you found to be the biggest challenges in doing that? What do you find to be most effective? What suggestions might you give to Liesl as she's participating in these kinds of events? How do you deal with the flow of traffic and interacting with people? Anyone want to jump in with your experience or challenges that you've faced? All right, Carla. Oh, you're muted. There we go.
Yeah, as the years go by, I still love to go to some art festivals, and those, especially local ones. And I have some stuff that's very heavy. My husband's great about helping set it up, but then he's gone. So I think the challenge is getting it set up, and then some places make you take it down that night and then set it up again in the morning. And I have a big tent, zip shut and locks, but that doesn't say much for the shows that let you stay overnight. I mean, leave your stuff overnight. But I think the biggest challenge is setting it up, trying to cover all your customers and the people that come in, and then taking it away and getting it all set back up again. It's a big chore. And if you have a long ways to go, like we used to do, it's quite a big load in my pickup.
And you have to be careful because if you're not careful, all of that effort and work and the setup, by the time people start coming in, you're like, I'm done. I've done all the work. And it can be very difficult to be on. Yeah. And I'm glad you brought that up. The approach that we have taken to help a little bit with that, and I'll be engaged in this coming week as we get ready for the 4th of July show, and that is to do as much pre-planning and pre-setup and pre-work as you can, and to break that work up so that you don't go into the event depleted. Yeah. And so, for example, and I'll have photos of this this next week, we set up the show on Friday, but starting on Tuesday, I will be doing a dry run of that setup, setting up all the walls, figuring out how the artwork is going to be laid out, putting up all the hooks, numbering everything, so that when we come to Friday morning, there's no mental energy that has to be expended in trying to figure things out or work through problems that we hadn't anticipated. That dry run is going to help us eliminate, and we did this last year as well, that just helps take some of the mental challenge away, because when Saturday morning comes and those first people are walking onto the showgrounds, I want to be at 100%. I want to be ready to engage. That is the work. And unfortunately, I haven't participated in a lot of shows, but what I have seen of some of the other participants, not all of them, some of them are very engaged, but a lot of the other participants, boy, it's very low energy, very little engagement. And I'm just dumbfounded that I would go to all this work to set up the show and then not put forth a tremendous effort to take advantage of all that work that we've done to work towards generating the sales. And so I would think of this almost like a stage performance or, acting in some way. And that is that the work we do ahead of time, the prep we do ahead of time puts us in a position to be ready to take full advantage. And then when the time comes, I'm going to engage in every way possible. If I can have an assistant with me to be able to break it up, I want to do that. But there were a number of days in last year's show where I was solo and I just had to be a one-man band and make everything happen. And you just roll with it. Carol, let me pull you in.
Hi, I had a something that I did a couple of shows ago that worked out well enough that I've kept it going. And that is I got some note cards on Amazon, blank note cards scored for folding. And then I set up my name tags for all the paintings and everything I wanted to put on. Some of them I have a little blurb, whatever, but the name, and you can adjust the size you get. And then I took them down to Office Depot because they had not better printers than me. And so it prints on one side of the note card. So here's your note card. And then I staple it onto the back of my painting with the fold going backwards. So when they're stored at my house, and I bought those bubble wrap bags from Uline, big 30 by 3 foot by 4 foot bags, and my paintings just drop in there. So when they're stored, the name tag is behind it. I even have them hanging on my wall at my house with the name tag fold behind. And then when I go to do a show, I just go out like this and it's all done. So that whole part of the pre and the setup and the install, I don't have to deal with that.
Love it.
And
Great
then I have
suggestion.
them all mounted like at the same height. Most of my artwork's the same size. So I have them mounted kind of, and I just staple them on the back of the frame and then fold them. If you want to get fancy, you can put a little Velcro dot on the back side. So when they fold, they stay nice.
I love that suggestion. And and I think there are two things there to pay particular attention to. One is the pre-planning and preparation so that you're ready to go. And number two is that by having that information easily accessible and available in the booth, now if I'm engaged with someone else, the customer can still have a good experience because of that work I've put in ahead of time. They can know what the size and medium and price of the artwork is. If you've got a description there, they can educate themselves about the artwork. And in essence, you have multiplied yourself by doing that work so that even if you can't fully engage with someone, they're not being deprived of learning about the artwork and have the opportunity to make a purchase. And so love that suggestion. Great suggestion, Carol. And don't be surprised if I steal and adapt that folding card idea.
And they don't fall off because I staple them on the backside.
Yes, that was one of our things last year. Having it been my first show, we did it in plastic. We did our cards in plastic covers with Velcro adhered to the back of those to put on the pro panels, which was a great idea, except as it got warm, the adhesive between the Velcro and the plastic card holder decided that it didn't really want to hold on. And so that meant that I spent a good part of the show picking up labels and trying to get them to stick back onto the card. So I like this staple idea. We also have adapted some pins that are going to work for this season. But boy, again, a great argument for doing some preparation and maybe even a dry run so that you can see how things are going to work, how they're going to look before the day of the event, so you're not scrambling and losing energy trying to fix things that aren't working. Great suggestions. Anyone else want to hop in with suggestions for shows or events? If not, we'll move on. Okay, we're going to move on to our next question. This one from Rana. Here we go. Rana says, I've heard you mention in previous Q&As that UPS and FedEx are good resources for shipping art. Due to space constraints, storing packing supplies and packing the art myself isn't feasible. I'm wondering if you'd advise having UPS or FedEx take care of packing as well as shipping. It's a good question, and I'm going to have to give a nuanced and caveated answer. And that is that I've not had FedEx do the packing, but we have done packing with the UPS store previously. And the artwork has been packed fine and it's arrived safely. I would just say that it's not my first choice if I have other options. And again, not because they don't do a good job, but because I have found that typically it's going to be significantly more expensive to have the UPS store itself or the FedEx store itself pack it up. Now, there are some advantages in terms of insurance. If they pack it, then obviously they become responsible if you insure with them all the way through the chain and won't fight you about whether it was packed well enough or not. But having said that, my preference is that I would typically prefer to find a third-party packing company, if and this will depend on the area that you're in, if one's available, that can do the packing for you and maybe has a little bit more experience fragile or high value items. You go into a UPS store, and I don't mean to speak disparagingly of the folks that you find behind the counter there, but are they seasoned professionals who have packed, thousands of high value items over the years? Not the ones that I'm encountering typically. A lot of times it's a relatively young person who wouldn't have a lot of experience. And if I can find someone else to do it, I would prefer to have that done and then use UPS or FedEx just to handle the shipping part of it. In a pinch, ultimately, however, we got to get shipping done. And if I don't have the capacity to do it myself, and if I don't have a third party, I wouldn't warn you away from UPS. Just be aware of the challenges there and make sure that, you're giving yourself plenty of lead time for the shipment and, making sure that the specifications for the boxes and stuff that they're using make sense to you. Stephen, let me go to you. I think you've got a hand up, and then I'll go to Joyce. Oh, maybe I don't have Stephen, so let me go to Joyce.
Okay, getting my large paintings ready for the Art Santa Fe has really been an experience. I ordered boxes from Art Float, I think it's called, and the boxes are larger than I am. And I don't know, I have to go and mail one today, and I can't even carry the box to put it in the car. So I'm going to have to ask one of the neighbors to help me put it in. And then when I get to FedEx, I'm going to have to ask them to come out and help me. It's just next time I think I would have to hire somebody to try to do this, because the work of even cutting the foam to fit and everything, it's really a long job, a hard one to get it all put together. And it's been quite an experience. I didn't realize it was going to be so tiring.
Yes, it is. And, as I think I've mentioned here a few times previously, there are, over the years, I would suspect that I have perhaps the broadest shipping experience, as broad a shipping experience as many professional packers have. I have packed and shipped, if not many, many hundreds, maybe thousands of pieces of art over the 25 years that I've been in the art business, from very small to very large. And certainly the bigger they are, the more challenging they become, and the logistics of dealing with that. And I've reached a point in my life where I've decided that I'm kind of done. It's not that I won't ship anything anymore. I do still ship some things, but there's some artwork that, because of either the size or the fragility or the frame or whatever it may be, I'll take one look at it and say, it's going to cost me more to have a professional come pick it up and take it away and crate it and ship it. It's going to cost me more. But from a financial standpoint, yes, it's going to cost me more. But from an effort and time and energy and frustration standpoint, it's worth the investment in having them do that and take care of it. And so it's not, kind of looking at Joyce, what you just mentioned, a big one. It's not that I wouldn't have done that, because sometimes it's just good to know what's involved and to have the experience, so that even when I do hire someone to do it, now I appreciate what they're doing and I see the value in having them come and take care of it. And some of these shippers, many of them will have their own truck that they can just come to your studio, pick it up, take it away, and you never have to think about it again. And it's certainly worth thinking about doing that. At different phases of our career and experience, we're going to have different philosophy and approach to dealing with shipping. And when you run into questions, again, this is a great time to reach out to me, and I'm happy to give you feedback and suggestions about how you might best approach
I
that.
wanted to ask a question of whoever is here and yourself. FedEx has this new box now that's called Airfloat, and it's almost like I don't know. The only thing I can think of is Saran wrap that you slide the painting in. Have you had any of your artists send their work that way?
I have not. Anyone here had experience with alternate?
They're called Airfloats, and they're very expensive. They're on the comparison of, for 2 boxes, I spent $318.
Yeah, I've heard of Airfloat boxes with the foam in them and the reinforced sides. And yes, those can be quite spendy. We have used some in the past. I don't typically use them because of the inefficiencies. The sizes don't always match up to exactly what I want, and they end up being a lot bigger than we would want them to be. And therefore freight ends up being more, but it's always a trade-off because, there's a lot more work involved if we have to do a custom box. Michael, I see you have a hand up, and then I'll go to Stephen.
Actually, I've had things sent to me in those Airfloat boxes, and I was really impressed with how well things were secured inside that type of a packaging design. It really, really worked.
Yeah, and it's a good point that it does a great job of protecting the work. And if you can, especially in a situation where you're shipping to a show and there's a possibility of the artwork coming back to you and you getting that box back, that there is an advantage to that because it can be reused multiple times, not even more than just there and back. It could be used there and back and there and back again several times. And so I wouldn't disparage them. I would just say that in the long run, as we start shipping a higher volume of artwork and more regularly, we might want to work towards something that's a little more cost effective, or just outsourcing completely that shipping and letting someone else take care of it for us. Stephen.
Yes, I have a horror story with shipping by FedEx, which Jason is well aware of. The thing that I would say is to be very careful about the shipping sizes. So if you've got a paint, and they're very clever because standard sizes can be an inch too big or an inch too small.
And an inch can make a huge difference in the cost of the shipment.
Literally hundreds of dollars between one size and another. There's also, I stole FedEx's idea though, and I'm just going to share this. Because what they did was build a cardboard cradle. So basically it's flaps on both sides and they slip into the box, and the whole package, no part of your painting is never less than 2 inches away from any side. And it's great. And that's simply I don't want to say simple, simply an X-Acto knife and a little bit of measurement. And I've done that after the horror story because I don't have enough money to pay FedEx $500 to ship something to a juried show and then have to have it returned.
Yeah, that's right.
Easy.
And boy, it's a good point that shipping and logistics feel like a collateral topic for us, right? That we're artists, we're creative, we are focused on honing our craft and being creating something that's unique and innovative. And shipping feels like almost an afterthought and something that we have to deal with and run through. Ultimately, as our art business gets up and running and spinning and regular, shipping becomes a big part of that. And it is, it's worth making the investment of time, either figuring out how to do it for ourselves or finding someone who can do it for us so that it can be a smooth part of the of our art business. We do not want the challenges and difficulties that come with shipping and freight to prevent us from reaching our full potential because, we're terrified of dealing with those logistics. And so, we're going to make mistakes and missteps, and we're going to have those $500 shipments. Boy, nothing teaches us faster than a $500 mistake. And we're just going to chalk that up to experience, learn from it, get better at it, and continue to move on. Joyce, I'm going to give you the last word back on shipping.
Yeah, I wasn't expecting. All right, so I'm only sending 3 large paintings, and they're not really large. They're 30 by 24, 2 30 by 24s. And
oh, Joyce, those are tiny. Little itty bitty paintings.
Well, I was able to handle that box, but this other one, 36 by 30 framed, the box is humongous. But what I didn't count on, it's going to cost me between buying the boxes and the shipping, because I have to send return labels, almost $1,000.
Yeah.
For those 3 paintings.
Yeah, that's a lot. Again, this is another challenge with the airfloat systems, is that they do have significant padding, which helps protect the artwork, but it can push you into oversized categories, which then add surcharges to the shipping and make it more expensive. And again, it's just one of those things where, like, it is what it is right now. I got to get this artwork out to the event. It's on its way, and it cost me, and I'm just going to chalk it up to cost. I would ultimately, are there ways that you might have been able to do that for significantly less? Probably, but those are just things that we'll work towards as you get more experience.
Yeah, and I didn't think it was really that expensive for the 2 boxes that I brought yesterday, which had, the one box was some smaller paintings, $171.
Yeah.
And that box, the other box was, pretty big. It was, because they were 30 inches, the box was 39 inches.
I'm going to make a note to myself right now. In fact, this is going to be boring, but give me just a second here. We're going to have a part of a session coming up, and I'm going to go through our shipping bill with you guys. I'm going to show you some shipments that we've done over the last 6 months, what it cost us to have them packed up, and what the freight costs, just so that we can have a little bit of a baseline of what the possibilities are, and so you can get a bit more of a realistic sense of what shipping expenses might look like. And I'm not saying that our shipping, our system is perfect and that we are at the absolute minimum, but at least then we'll have a point of reference as you're shipping your own work to give you a good idea of what those sizes will be.
Well, it wasn't too bad with, it's just the return postage that really kills me.
Yeah, it adds up for sure. Every time you have to move something, that adds on to our expense. So do a Q&A. with shipping, bills, and expenses. There we go. All right, we're going to do that within the next month. We're going to just do 15 minutes running down through our shipping expenses. Okay, let's jump on. I've got a couple more questions here. And this first one is, this one comes from Helen. Let me get it up. And this is on our mailing list, which is a frequent topic of conversation. Good news, I've been getting more subscribers to my newsletter, which is great news. But I've noticed that consistently over the years, about a quarter of those who subscribe never open an issue. I generally track new subscribers for a couple of months to see what's happening, and I'm puzzled by this. Why might this happen? I have a proprietary email, not just Gmail, which is supposed to help avoid the problem of going into junk mail. Yep, that could be one of the issues. These people are self-subscribing to MailChimp on the sign-up form, so they voluntarily input their own email addresses, yet they don't open automated welcome message that goes out immediately and don't open subsequent emails. So any ideas on what to do to actually engage people, especially when they have just signed up? One would think they are interested. Oops, I didn't mean for that to go on, but yeah, it's a good question. And there are some technical issues that could be at play. Some email clients, the software that your customers are using to receive and open email, some of those email clients are set up to stop email tracking. In other words, the only way that MailChimp or one of the other services knows that someone's opened the emails, because they will put, in essence, it's like a Facebook pixel, but it's a pixel in there that when it hits their server, that's how they know that the email got opened and viewed. When the request for that image or bit of data comes through, they say, okay, this email got opened. And some email users don't want to be tracked that way. And so there are some email clients that just won't tell you whether they're opening that email. But I suspect that's a fairly small percentage of this quarter that you're seeing not opening the emails. There's going to be a good percentage of those people who are like me, where I will, with some frequency, I'll be reading something and I'm like, this guy or this gal is really smart. I love what this person is saying. I want to hear more about, they have a newsletter. I'll sign up for it. And it'll come into my inbox, and among the 100 other messages that I receive every single day, and I'll be burning through my email and I just don't have time for it. And it goes to the wayside. And after 3 or 4 months, I'm like, I never opened a single email from this person. It's time for me to unsubscribe, because it's just not going to happen. And I think that happens to a lot of us. We get more ambitious in the moment. I love this art. I want it in my inbox. But then the reality sets in and they just don't get open. It could be getting filtered into the Gmail promotions tab. Unfortunately, Gmail has gotten more aggressive about sorting and stuff. And I've turned all that off in my Gmail because I want everything to come into the same box. But a lot of people don't, and so they just never end up filtering through that. So that can certainly be a reason. And ultimately, yes, we can do some work in crafting our subject line, in being more that first automation of welcome emails that come out. Maybe it's more than one email. When I have new people join the Red Dot blog email list, there's a series of 6 or 7 emails that go out in the first 6 or 7 days, so that it's a little harder to ignore. So we might think about increasing the first few emails. You say, oh, well, that's going to annoy them and they're going to unsubscribe. And that's that balancing act that I'm always talking about. If someone's going to be scared away by my efforts to engage with them, I probably don't want them on my list anyway. So I err on the side of more engagement. I'm not afraid of losing those subscribers. And then at the end of the day, we should just also know that the reality, the numbers game that we are playing, is that there is going to be some percentage. Might not be a quarter. We might be able to get it down from there, but we might not get it down much from there. Maybe we can go from 25% to 23% who never engage, or 20% at some point through all of our efforts. But there is still going to always be a significant portion, and we see this at the Xanadu with the Xanadu list, that there's just a significant portion of our subscribers who will never open or engage in any way. And so what to do with that? Well, if you're using a platform where your subscriber count doesn't really cost you anything, in other words, if you're far away from their limits or from being charged for the subscriptions, maybe I don't worry about it too much, because who knows, at some point someone may engage. And if I'm not, there are other considerations. If I've got tens of thousands of people on my list, I want better deliverability, better open rates so that my deliverability stays high. But ultimately, I don't worry about it. I track it and I try to improve it where I can, but I know that there's just going to be a hard limit where I'm never going to do better than perhaps that 25%. And I would turn it around and think of it the other way. Yes, I do have 25% who've never engaged, but hey, good news. That means I've got 75% who at some point are engaging. And I'm just going to kind of work from that number. I would think about doing, especially when you do get to the point where your list is growing and becoming more active, I would think about doing some purges, list cleanup from time to time. We have it set up automatically. If someone has not engaged with an email from us for 2 months, they're going to get a new automation series from us that's going to say, hey, we noticed that you're not opening our emails. We don't want to flood your inbox. If you'd like to stay on the list, click on this link. Otherwise, we're going to take you off the list in the next, I think we do it in a 10-day period, and give them a couple of opportunities to stay subscribed. And if they don't engage, I don't have to think about it. It just automatically pulls them off the list and they're gone. And I never worry about that again. I just let them, if they want to come back, they'll come back at some point, and we can do that then. But it might not make sense for you to do that automatically and set up all the automations. It might just make sense for you to say, once a year, I'm going to go in and I'm going to do a filter that says anyone who hasn't opened an email in the last 6 months and they subscribed to my list more than a year ago, I'm going to take them out, or I'm going to send them one email and then I'm going to take them out, because what we don't want to have happen is have that percentage of inactives start to grow to where now it's 50% of my list isn't opening any of my emails, and then 60% of my list isn't opening my emails, because that can start to send signals to Gmail and some of the bigger servers that my email isn't quite as engaging as, not as important as I'd like it to be. So mailing list maintenance is certainly something to be aware of and to think about. Okay, Helen, I think you're here. If you wanted to hop in with any comments on that, or give us a few last words there.
Yeah, just if MailChimp does a breakdown of engages regularly, occasionally, and rarely. If the rarely starts getting up toward 50%, is that the point when you just flush those?
I would, I'm going to revise my statement. I would just go ahead and start doing some flushing anyway. If I've got them marked as rarely engages and they've been on my list for a long time, that's what I would start thinking about eliminating, and just keep that count down.
Okay.
Good.
Thank you.
Okay, excellent. All right. Well, there were a couple questions I did not get to in this session. Again, if it was an urgent question that I didn't get to today, don't hesitate to ping me and say, hey, Jason, I can't wait for the next Q&A. Please answer this question now. Otherwise, we're going to be off next Friday. We will be here. If all goes well, I'm hoping we can be here on Wednesday for the social media session. I'll be coming from Pine Top, but I think my schedule should allow that. But then we'll be off on Friday, and then the following week we'll be back into the groove of things. So hope you're all having a great beginning to your summer. For a lot of you, this is the season. Summer is the big art season, and so hopefully you're seeing a lot of engagement and some sales kicking in. We'll have a lot to talk about in the coming months. So keep those questions coming.